The Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond.
You're awful.
And AJ Applegarth.
It's Sin Shu Chu. It's a mouthful.
All right. Welcome back to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. Unfortunately, AJ Applegarth cannot be with us tonight, so brought on guest co-host Kevin Huo. What's up, man?
What's going on, man? Not too much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for filling in kind of last minute, but you're always welcome on the show, man. Glad to have you here. So we've got a exciting show tonight, but wanted to quick, say that, week 4 of the preseason's here. Not a whole lot happening, although apparently Demaryius Thomas is proving that he's not dead yet. And then, we've got some injuries that are popping up here. Obviously Lamar Miller, big one. We'll talk about that. Big news, obviously, Andrew Luck retired. We'll get into that a little bit more, too, a little bit later. Yeah, I'm trying to think, man. I had another injury in mind here just a second ago, and now I'm blanking on it. But, yeah, it's been actually fairly quiet around the NFL as far as, injuries go the last couple of weeks, except for those two big ones. So that's pretty good news heading into drafts here. But let's just roll with it, man. I'm going to keep with my tradition of Beer of the Week and introduce mine.
Beer.
So I am drinking a Sierra Nevada 2019 edition Hoptimum triple IPA. I've had this before, but it's a nice solid malty, really really flavorful IPA. It is very hoppy, obviously by the triple IPA, but it's a solid one. I think I give it a 4 1/4 on the top, so I enjoy it. All right, man. Let's not waste any time. Get right into our guest here. We got Sean Corner from the Action Network, and you guys probably know him best from being the number 1 ranked Fantasy Pros ranker for 3 straight years between 2015 and 2017. Finally got knocked off his perch last year, but still had a solid showing. What's up, Sean? You there?
Yeah, what's up? Thanks for having me. Yeah, I slipped to about 13th place last year, so everyone's giving me crap about that. But, can't win it every year. It's really tough. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely. Mad props for doing first, obviously, and then you're good when you get shit talked for finishing 13th.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty ridiculous. So obviously what we want to do with you today is go over some ADP, late preseason, I guess, risers and fallers, and just, kind of what we think. Is their ADP kind of too high, too low, people overreacting to different news here and there, 1 or 2 highlights from a preseason game type of thing that kind of gets people all hyped up. But let's lead with obviously the big news of the last week, and that is Andrew Luck retiring. And clearly Andrew Luck off the board, no doubt. But what about the rest of the Colts, man? What are we thinking here with these guys? T.Y. Hilton. Let's just lead with him. What are you thinking with him going into this year now?
So I would say the only person that gets an upgrade is Jacoby Brissett. Which is pretty obvious, but everybody else, even the running game, I gave a massive downgrade to, or I wouldn't say massive, but I gave a downgrade to almost everybody. T.Y. Hilton, I think, is affected the most. I had him as my wide receiver 13 before this news broke that Luck retired, and now he's down to wide receiver 20. Okay. And it looks like he's still being drafted pretty high. So I saw his ADP the last few days, a snapshot, just the 3-day average, still about wide receiver 16. So I'm probably not getting T.Y. Hilton in any upcoming drafts. It looks like people are still pretty bullish on him. So I'm not sure where they're getting that from. But, you know, he got to play with Brissett a couple years ago, but they have way more pass catchers now. So I think they're going to spread it around, unfortunately. And, you know, Hilton's a guy, he's the kind of guy that's kind of a little too inconsistent for me to begin with. So I'm pretty much passing on him when he's being drafted as a mid wide receiver too. So I just gave him a way bigger downgrade than everybody else, it seems like.
Yeah, I think I knocked him down to like 19 or so we're right around the same range there. I'm pretty off of him at this point. I liked him heading into the season. Him and Luck seem to have something a little special. What are you feeling about Marlon Mack here? He's kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, similar where, you know, I think it's going to downgrade him a bit. I think the Colts are going to rush for more touchdowns. Like the distribution of touchdowns are going to lean more towards the run game. But having said that, I think Marlon Mack last year, you could see, you know, he benefited from a bunch of positive game scripts. So if they're going to not be leading as many games, you're just not going to see game scripts that favor Mack. So I think that's going to actually favor Nyheim Hines a bit more. So it's just another situation where I think I move them down far enough where, you know, I have Mack at RB21 now, and people are still drafting him again as sort of a mid-range RB2. So I just think with the Colts overall, I have them losing 7.5 touchdowns on the season. So that's a big hit on Mack. I had him at about 8 touchdowns on the year, and now it's closer to 6.5. So again, it's just Andrew Luck is so valuable that it's a ripple effect across the whole team. You know, they might run it more and stuff, but, you know, less touchdowns, less positive game scripts, all of that hurts Marlon Mack.
Yeah, and then I think the last players that anybody really care about here are the 2 tight ends, and clearly Eric Ebron was getting drafted within that top, you know, 10 tight end range. Do you think he's still worth it in that range?
Absolutely not. No, I have him down to tight end 15. Again, he's going to be pretty touchdown dependent, and with Jacoby Brissett, they're just not going to score as many touchdowns. Having said that, I do like Jacoby Brissett. I have him as sort of a mid-range to low-end QB2. I think he'll be useful as a streaming quarterback during the season. So I don't want to knock on him too much, but it's just a given. They're going to score less points, less touchdowns. So that definitely impacts Ebron. When it comes to Doyle, though, I didn't really downgrade him much at all. I pretty much have him staying the same. We saw him, you know, he had great chemistry with Brissett a couple years ago. So, you know, he's my tight end 20. Anything outside of tight end 12, you're probably not drafting in a standard league anyway. So, you know, both of them are just kind of outside of that range of where I think they're draftable. So they're guys we could look out, you know, as streamers during the season if there's a great matchup. But Ebron's pretty much off my draft board at this point.
Yeah, his ADP is still up there. I think people are just buying fool's gold at this point. I can't agree with you. So
yeah,
I didn't really like him a whole lot entering the season anyway. I thought the Doyle return was going to hurt him enough to not make me not want him. But yeah, people love the touchdowns he got last year. So I guess that's what it's all about. Kevin, you got anything to add to that?
No, and I will just add that, you know, Devin Funchess, I liked him heading into the season. I thought he was going to be a potential red zone monster. And part of the reason why I didn't like Eric Ebron, I just think Devin Funchess, you know, he played tight end at Michigan, so he can kind of dominate those types of targets. So, you know, with Brissett under center now, a guy like Funchess is completely off my board. I have him all the way down to wide receiver 76. Just another one of those guys where his touchdown share is going to go way down. So I have absolutely no use for him heading into the season, which is unfortunate because I did like him with Luck. Assuming Luck was going to be healthy week 1, I did like Funchess as sort of a back end bench wide receiver guy.
Yeah. So Kevin, you got anything to add about the Colts?
No, I think Sean pretty much nailed it on the head. Kind of summed up my thoughts exactly, basically. Pretty much everyone just gets a downgrade. Obviously, you're gonna upgrade Brissett. I'm curious to see how are you ranking Brissett as far as maybe 2 quarterback leagues, Sean?
So I have him right now as QB 24, and I'm actually docking him. Let's see, I'm docking him about like 1.2 games, which is quite a bit for a quarterback. I'm sort of factoring in the remote chance that they bring in a quarterback to compete with him, and also Chad Kelly. He's suspended the first 2 games, but he has potential. So, there's a chance that Brissett loses his job in season. I'm not saying that's likely, but you have to factor that in, the risk. So after all that, he's QB 24. So that tells me, during the season, there's going to be some weeks where I might have him ranked inside of the top 15 if the matchup's right. They don't have that week 1 against the Chargers. I do not like Brissett, but I can see, going forward, there's going to be some matchups where Brissett could be I wouldn't say low-end QB1, but more of a high-end QB2 or a streamer type of guy.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point because the infrastructure of the Colts is a lot better than it used to be. The offensive line and the weapons are there. So there's a chance that Brissett is going to be streamable in some weeks.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Moving on to another major injury. Not as major, obviously, but Lamar Miller. So Duke Johnson is now going in round 7, according to ADP. Do you think he should be higher or lower or kind of right around there with Lamar Miller going out for the season?
Yeah, I would say right around there. I moved him up immediately to running back 26, and it looks like his ADP is around running back 30 right now. So I would reach for him a little bit, especially in any sort of PPR. I think he's going to be great there. He kind of has a reputation of being just a pass catching back, but that's not really true. He's more than capable of handling 15 plus touches. So even my conservative projections right now of 14 touches a game. I still have him as RB26. So I think there's actually more room to go there. So I think he could actually end up being a high-end RB2 if they don't bring in any sort of veteran back. I'm sort of factoring that in right now. I think they will bring in another body. I'm also not scared of the competition behind him. They sort of have a trio of backup running backs that I'm not willing to touch right now. So we'll see how that sorts out. But I think that it's his job. In that offense, even with the shaky offensive line, his style of play, they're going to use him as an extension of the run game by checkdowns and in the passing game. So I think that even if the offensive line is as bad as we think, I think he'll have some use there. And, defense is going to have to pay attention to Deshaun Watson. So I just think he's underrated as a guy that could potentially be a workhorse back. So I love him at his current ADP of RB30.
Yeah, and actually, I'm looking at the slides now. So I made these notes a couple of days ago, and it looks like his ADP has climbed into the 6th round. So people are starting to agree more with you there, Sean.
Yeah, I would say 6 rounds about right. And I will say that I haven't seen many people talk about it, but I think he's the more he's on the field, the more that's going to hurt Kiki QT. So I've actually been downgrading QT, not to mention QT's hurt again. So he's apparently made of glass. But I think that, they used him sort of as a pass catching back a little bit last year. Yeah. So the fact that they have Duke Johnson there, I think that it's going to impact Kiki QT more than people think. So I've been downgrading him now that we're going to get Duke Johnson on the field way more to start the season.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, and I'm pissed because I drafted Kuti and Scott Football, so it's all good. Love drafting in July. So another interesting situation going on is in Miami, and obviously you had Kenyan Drake get hurt early on in camp, or early on this preseason in a walking boot. They were saying he was pretty questionable for week 1, and Kalen Ballage's stock rose dramatically. I mean, there was already talk that like Ballage was getting first team reps in practice early on, and there was talk of 50-50 splits, and so everybody went all in on Kalen Ballage. It felt like, are their ADPs kind of where they should be right now, or are people overreacting to Ballage taking more of the workload here?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. Right now, I have Drake a little bit ahead of his ADP, and I have Kalen Ballage just a little bit behind. And to be honest, I don't like investing in running backs on teams where I'm projecting to win 4 or 5 games and be in permanent tank mode. So a really bad team with a running back by committee is not something I'm trying to invest in. Having said that, they're going to tailor their offense around basically what we've seen from the Patriots. The new head coach, Brian Flores, and offensive coordinator Chad O'Shea come from the Patriots. So, I just basically consider Kenyan Drake is sort of the James White role, and Kalen Ballage is the Sony Michel role. So which role makes sense on a really crappy team? And I would say that's the James White role. So I actually do kind of like Drake at his current ADP. But having said that, there's been some rumors that he might get traded. So if they do unload him before week 1, I think that will boost Kalen Ballage's stock a little bit. But again, this is a situation I'm not really trying to tackle, just because, especially with the offensive line in Miami, this is just a situation to avoid. But if Kenyan Drake is still on the team week 1, I think he's the back to own at the current ADP.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there, man. This is the backfield I'm trying to avoid. I mean, I've got shares in like best ball leagues because it was around like 13, and I was like, why not? But other than that, no thanks.
Yeah, totally. Like you said, if you were getting Kalen Ballage in round 13, that's great. I think that's a great value. But right now, he's sort of been overhyped, and his ADP has kind of sailed past where I have him ranked. So it's just like a market. So yeah, round 13, love him. Round wherever he's going now, I'm just avoiding him.
Yeah, it looks like low 9s, very early 10s. So yeah, it's too much for me. So I want to just kind of jump in here. So those were kind of like the news type of questions, hot topic guys that I wanted to ask you about. But now we're going to kind of group them all together. So go by position and then group it by these are players that have been rising over the preseason. And start with quarterback here. So Lamar Jackson is up 2 rounds. I mean, we've all seen the highlight from, I want to say that was the first preseason game, right? Where he just juked the entire team and then jumped over a guy, it looked like, to score a touchdown, right? It was just, I mean, it kind of looked like the Packers, they weren't even trying. So, I mean, are people overreacting to this highlight of him just running for 25 yards for a touchdown? Or is this legit? Should he have been ranked this high in the first place?
He should have been ranked this high in the first place. I feel like the ADP is sort of caught up to where I had him to begin with. So I've had him at QB 14 for a while now, and I want to say he was like QB 19 or even QB 20 earlier in the summer. I will say though, this range at quarterback is pretty tight. So, from QB 11 to about QB 19, I only have them separated by about 8 points. So even just the most subtle tweak in projections can send that guy up or down a few spots. So, this range alone, you don't want to overlook too much into any movement because it's so tight to begin with. But having said that, yeah, I think people are underestimating just how high of a floor Lamar Jackson has. We already know he's going to get the rushing stats, which is actually very helpful on a weekly basis because you're going to get a certain amount of points from him. But his ceiling will be, if he's able to kind of grow in the passing game. And, he was kind of thrown out there mid last year where, they didn't really set up the offense around him. So I think with this offseason, with new offensive coordinator Greg Roman, they're going to be able to set it up and tailor it around him. So we could see him actually, average over 200 yards passing a game and still sort of get that rushing upside. So I think people have just been kind of overlooking his high ceiling and high floor combo that I kind of like getting from a quarterback, especially when you're getting him outside of the top 12. I just think he's a really good value even still where he's being drafted.
Yeah, my worry with Jackson though is he's a little guy, man. Like you're just afraid he's going to take one wrong hit and he's done. Like those running quarterbacks just scare the death out of me, man. And I don't like to have to rely on them for my season. So
yeah, well, I mean, having said that though, the waiver wire is going to be stacked this year.
That's true.
There's leagues where Tom Brady and Kirk Cousins aren't being drafted. So I think it's like you said, he does have that injury risk, but there's the upside or downside, whatever you want to call it, where the waiver wire is going to be great. So if something happens with him, I think you'll be fine. So and you're not really reaching for him. Someone like Kyler Murray, you kind of have to reach for, but Lamar Jackson's going late now. For even if he gets hurt, he's not going to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, as a Ravens fan, this is all music to my ears. I mean, it does make a ton of sense. I think people are overlooking the fact that he'll have a full offseason to kind of learn the playbook, and they'll actually, have players who are going to fit with him So I'm really looking forward to Lamar Jackson. I actually just drafted him yesterday. Speaking of my draft yesterday, it was on Yahoo, and they actually have Nick Chubb, who's up almost a full round now. They have him ranked 4th overall. I was wondering, what do you think about that? Does the fact that
chuckle?
Yeah, 4th overall is that's a little high, but what do you think about his ranking there, and does the fact that Hunt is going to come back in week 10 bother you at all?
Well, I didn't know they had him ranked 4th overall. That's pretty crazy. I do like Chubb, but I'm gonna have to check that.
Yeah, I heard that the other day too.
So yeah, if he's going at the end of round 1, I think that's perfect. I've liked him pretty much all summer. I would say, the back end of the RB1 tier this year is really shaky. We had guys like Gurley and even Melvin Gordon before he finally fell out of the first 3 rounds completely. But, just the back end of RB1 is pretty shaky, and he's one of the most dependable guys, I think. So I do like him. My draft strategy personally is to take receivers late in the first round and early second. So he's typically not my draft plan, but certainly if you're going to take a running back, you could do a lot worse. And you bring up a good point with Kareem Hunt. I'm not worried about him too much. I think this is Chubb's backfield, and Kareem Hunt, he could just be more of a change of pace back by week 10. But having said that, you really don't want your players' stock to sort of trend down, especially when it comes to fantasy playoffs time. So he's a guy, if you take him and he's like, top 3 back after, say, week 6, and you want to flip him for like let's say Alvin Kamara is struggling or Zeke is struggling or something, just, try to sell high on him. You could do that. You got to make sure you're getting enough in return, but just having said that, it's not comforting knowing that Kareem Hunt's going to be there during the fantasy playoffs. So I personally, if I take Chubb, I would just let it ride. I think no matter what, he's going to be a top 10 back the entire season. So when Kareem Hunt gets there, maybe he'll just take some third down work or just be more of a change of pace. But I just wouldn't shy away from him just because of that.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think they've kind of committed to him being the franchise guy, and my thoughts are that Kareem Hunt is going to be kind of a complimentary role when it comes back, but that's still going to matter. So I do like your idea of selling high on him. Joe, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Like, I don't think I'd be taking him at the back end of the first round. I think I'd be targeting a bit more receivers there too. But I am actually kind of worried about the Hunt. Like, right before playoffs, man, like you could get totally screwed. But I don't think Hunt's taking over by any means, but it's enough that if you were getting, 20 touches a game from Chubb, it might go down to 15. That's enough to matter, and so that's going to hurt. So yeah, selling high, that's a great idea. Want to move up? You mentioned him just a second ago, in somebody who could potentially trade for, but obviously Zeke is still holding out. We don't really know what's going to happen here yet. I drafted him a couple days ago, hoping it's working out for me. But his counterpart and kind of the handcuff at this point, Tony Pollard's moving up 3 rounds lately into the 10th round. Is that too much? Knowing if you expect Zeke to be there, or is this like, I don't really know if this is an overreaction to, people taking him thinking he's actually going to be the guy, and if Zeke's not there, or if this is like all the people handcuffing him, taking him this early.
Yeah, it's obviously people handcuffing him, and I don't think 10th round is too early. I really have no idea what's going on with Zeke. I would still say it's probably 50-50 suits up by week 1. I think by week 2 he should be in there, but I think at this point what we do know is Tony Pollard is the handcuff. So that's valuable in itself. And I actually, start targeting handcuffs by round 10. I really, once we get past like round 8, I treat the draft really aggressively. I just assume I'm going to be dropping most of these guys anyway. So I start loading up on these high upside backups. I mean, just looking at some of the drafts last year, one of the greatest teams I ever drafted, I took Kevin Benjamin in round 11. So that just goes to show that these 10th or 11th round picks, you can be aggressive. And I think Tony Pollard is the perfect way to be aggressive because, of all these like high upside backup handcuffs guys, he's the most likely to be, step up in a starting role before anybody. So we can't really predict who's going to get injured, but Zeke poses an interesting situation where I did it last year with James Conner. I had a ton of James Conner, even though we thought Le'Veon Bell was going to eventually end his holdout and play week 1. So I think if you can get Tony Pollard in round 10, you absolutely do. I'm wondering if he's going to end up being more of an 8th rounder by this weekend at this rate, because it sounds like Zeke is really holding his ground. So it's been pretty shocking for me, and like you, I've been still taking Zeke in the top 5, so it's not something you want to see. If you do end up taking Zeke in round 1, you absolutely have to go out of your way to get Pollard, and I would say even round 9 isn't crazy, just to make sure that you get him.
Yeah, I'm taking the chances here, hoping it's not a Bell situation. It's interesting to look at Pollard's ADP and. Or really more Zeke's ADP at this point. And then you look at somebody like Melvin Gordon's ADP, who you said has fallen out of the 3rd round now, and just how drastically people are taking these situations. And I mean, I guess it's more the news, and just media saying, oh, there's more of a chance Zeke signs, so people are just believing it. And man, they better be true.
Right.
So, I'll be very mad.
It's just a guessing game right now.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
If Melvin Gordon falls far enough, you can take a chance on that. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
So let's move on to someone else who's moving up a lot. Another rookie guy, Darwin Thompson. He's up to round 8 now. This feels almost a little too much, like a little bit of an overreaction. For all I know, Damian Williams hasn't done anything to lose the job. So, Sean, what do you think about Darwin Thompson? You mentioned that your strategy is to be really aggressive in these later rounds. So I imagine Thompson is someone that you're targeting as well.
Yeah, I would agree, though, with you that it feels a little too much. Like I said, rounds 9 or 10, I actually don't mind taking these high upside backups like Alexander Madison or Chase Edmonds, those types of guys. That probably need an injury, to be honest, to even have value. But I think Darwin Thompson, the reason why he's sort of pushing that boundary a little bit is because there's a realistic chance that he ends up overtaking Damian Williams at some point this year. Like you said, Damian Williams hasn't deserved to lose his job by any means. But, this is a situation where if Damian Williams gets hurt, Darwin Thompson is a potential, high upside RB2. But there is, like I said, a possibility that he does leapfrog him at some point. So I think that's why people are sort of reaching a little bit for him. And the other thing is, Carlos Hyde, it's pretty clear that he's more of just the 3rd string running back. So I think with Carlos Hyde sort of out of the way, that's why Darwin Thompson's stock is storing up. But it's by no way an indictment on Damian Williams, because he's done nothing wrong. It's just, we haven't seen him have more than 50 rushing attempts or 25 receptions in a season. So we just don't even know if Damian Williams can handle a full load for the whole season. And, I mentioned earlier with the Dolphins running backs, you don't want to invest in that, but the Chiefs running game, you absolutely sort of want to go out of your way to kind of just buy into it as much as you can. So I think I could see why somebody would want to sort of reach for Darwin Thompson round 8. It's an aggressive move, but it could pay off.
Yeah, I just wonder with somebody like him, like you've spent an 8th round pick on him, and actually I'm looking at the ADP. It looks like it's even crept right into the 7th round as of today. You've spent that high of a pick on a guy who is probably going to open the season as a backup, and as we've seen with Kansas City, they kind of just ride their starter for the most part. I mean, I feel like he's going to be dropped by like week 3, and then as we see every year with Kansas City, somebody new pops up midway through the year, and then he'll get scooped up, and that team will take advantage of it instead of the team who drafted him, unfortunately. So that's why I wouldn't be drafting him there, because I don't think he'll be kept. after a while. Injuries will hit teams, bye weeks will hit teams, and he'll get cut.
Yeah, well, I think if you're drafting him in the 7th round, you basically have to keep him all year long. That's kind of why you would spend a high draft pick on him. So it kind of proves your point. If you're spending an early draft pick on him, you're kind of forced to keep him no matter what, just because he does have that upside.
Yeah, it's not something I would be doing. So y'all can have him at that price. So moving on to some wide receivers here, we've got Kevin's favorite, Josh Gordon. Now, obviously, his ADP skyrocketed with the news of him coming off the suspension and everything. But do you think 6th round is too high for him?
It's definitely a decision you have to make. I would say yes, just because you're getting that massive ceiling. You could be getting him as your 3rd wide receiver potentially, and I think that's a great position to be in. And with him, my projection for him, I have him missing 3 games. It's almost impossible to project Josh Gordon because he might play 4 games, he might play the entire season. So with him, it's really just a risk assessment. So if he ends up playing the whole season, I have him ranked as wide receiver 15. So you have that sort of upside. Whereas if he's suspended again or he just goes AWOL, you're dropping him. So we sort of know his floor already. So I think getting him right around wide receiver 30, it's probably worth the risk. Like I said, I mean, once you get to around 6 or 7, it's okay to take these kind of risks. So having said that, it's one of those things where if you're comfortable with your team, you already have 2 solid wide receivers, 2 solid running backs, and maybe another receiver, and he's sitting there, you absolutely take him. I think he's worth the risk, just because it's pretty extreme with him. He's either playing and has wide receiver 1 potential, or something happens and you drop him. So I kind of like having those sort of binary scenarios for a guy of this massive upside.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Gordon, we all know. I mean, Joe called him my favorite. I've been just praying and hoping that Josh Gordon can keep it together for one season, just so we can make a glimpse of 2013 Josh Gordon. It's almost 6 years ago when you really think about it. It's pretty crazy, but yeah, I mean, the upside is definitely there. I think, Joe, you mentioned that Julian Edelman might have injured his hand or something. So
it looks like it was nothing. I saw some reports afterwards and
overreacted
people commented. Yeah, it's almost like he came off the field in the 4th preseason game. He was like, my hand, I can't go back in, guys, because it's the 4th preseason game, and what the hell am I doing out here?
Yeah, he probably just thought, he was like, why am I even suited?
I don't blame him.
But yeah, I mean, Josh Gordon, the upside. I'm just, if I'm comfortable with the guys I have there in redraft leagues, like 12-team leagues, pretty confident I can find a wide receiver on the waiver wire. So I'll definitely take Josh Gordon as like probably even my 2nd wide receiver if the draft follows me that way, but definitely my 3rd. All right, so moving on to some other wide receivers. I've got a pair of wide receivers got a little curious about. The guys in Carolina, you've got Curtis Samuel, who's up about a round and a half. He's kind of going at the beginning of the 8th now. Is that a little high, given that we all kind of think DJ Moore is still primed for a breakout, and he's ranked, I think, wide receiver 26 right now?
Yeah, I would say this is similar to what I was talking about earlier, where sort of the ADP has caught up to where I was. But it's flown past it. I'll say that. But earlier it was like, DJ Moore was like wide receiver 23 and Samuel was like almost wide receiver 50 back in June or July. And I'm saying they're all closer. Now that, Curtis Samuel, his 3-day average ADP the past couple of days, he's almost cracking the top 30. So that's a little bit too rich. I think DJ Moore is the wide receiver to own for the Panthers, but I am passing at Curtis Samuel right now. This offense probably isn't explosive enough to handle, to give both receivers useful fantasy weeks. I think they'll still be, good every week, but in this range, you can also get Sammy Watkins, or even like a little bit farther down, a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, guys that can actually be the number 2 receiver for their team, and they're on a much more explosive passing offense. So if I can get those guys cheaper, I'm willing to kind of wait and just take the risk on those guys, because the offense is sort of what I'm investing in when it comes to the second wide receiver. So just having said that, you kind of have to pick one or the other in this case. And I think DJ Moore is being drafted right about where he should be, and Curtis Samuel has kind of slipped ahead of where I was drafting him earlier in this offseason.
Yeah, I'm not really sure Cam Newton can carry 2 wide receivers at this level. So I'm with you. I'm definitely higher on Moore and willing to take him now that, like you said, a month ago I would have taken Samuel because his value was so good. Now it's, well, I'll just take Moore if I have to choose between the two. And that's basically what you have to do.
Yeah, and just to emphasize my point, I mean, they're not even the top passing targets on the team. I mean, that is Christian McCaffrey.
True.
So we have other weapons to worry about. And it's an offense that only has 230 to 240 yards to give. So when they're giving up that much to the running back like McCaffrey, it really does make a difference. And then you even have Greg Olsen back this year. Who knows how long he'll stay healthy, or how much his previous chemistry with Newton will last. But they just, there's too many weapons on this offense to, like you said, I don't think Newton can kind of carry both wide receivers every week. I think they'll kind of flip-flop who has the big game.
Yeah, for sure. So another guy here that I was interested in and was kind of really, really shocked to see how low his ADP was early on, given that he sounded like he was going to be ready for week 1 a long time ago. This is Emmanuel Sanders. His ADP has jumped up 2 rounds lately. It looks like he's in the I'm looking at it now, into the middle of the 9th, so almost 2.5 rounds now, middle of the 8th. I mean, he's looked good. I mean, I saw that end around play where he just ran it, and I was actually surprised they would give a play like that to somebody coming off an Achilles. But he's somebody who's been consistent the last couple of years in Denver. Is this somebody you're buying at his current ADP, or is this too rich for you?
Well, I mean, his ADP is right in line with where I have him ranked. I will admittedly say, like, I had him missing 2 to 3 games until it looked like he was making good progress. It's pretty incredible that a 32-year-old who I believe he tore his Achilles in like late October. It's just incredible how quick he was able to come back, and it looks like he's near 100%. So. I was worried about his Achilles, not so much anymore, but just in this range, I think that you would want to go for upside. That's the only reason why I won't be taking him. And, to be fair, he still has the downside. He's not out of the woodworks yet. Just because he had a couple of good plays doesn't mean, he's going to be able to keep up all season. So just in this range, it's late enough where I'm going to be taking more risks on guys like James Washington, Valdez-Scantling, or even like a Michael Gallup. I think if you're stacking your bench, you might as well shoot for the moon. So, a guy like Sanders, we already know what we're going to get if he's fully healthy, and there's a chance that he might not be. So even though I moved him up my draft board, I think he's being drafted right where he should be at wide receiver 45. He's just not in my draft plans just because of his limited upside.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's something to me about having guys, in this range of the draft still, where you're kind of halfway through it that you can still just rely on. I like taking chances a little bit later in the draft than you, but I mean, I see your point a little bit with him though, that there is still a huge question mark, and I mean, it is Joe Flacco, so yeah, about that.
Yeah, but just having said that, you made a great point. I think that in this range, you're either going for ceiling or floor. So yeah, there's guys like Emmanuel Sanders or Mohamed Sanu or Jamison Crowder, where you're going to get like a handful of points every week, and that's going to be somebody that you target if you took like an AJ Green, who could miss the first few weeks. Having a guy like that to kind of plug in right away could be useful. So in that scenario, yeah, that's when I think you would take Sanders.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, my thoughts on Sanders. I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's almost like a little personal thing. Like Sanders has been one of my favorite players to watch, and he actually tore his Achilles early December. So for him to be back,
Yeah, I thought it was later than that too. I wasn't
Wow.
quite sure, so I didn't say anything.
yeah, for him to be back in like 9+ months, and it's a contract year for him. Like, I just got a weird feeling that he's going to be good this year. But I totally understand your thinking about drafting him that late. Another guy who's coming off a pretty serious injury, Delaney Walker. His ADP is kind of rising again. I think people are kind of seeing the dearth of quality tight ends, and going back to Delaney Walker, who's been reliable for the last couple of years. What do you think about his draftability out in Tennessee?
I don't really like him, especially in the 10th round. I would say that sort of my cutoff at tight end is Austin Hooper. If Austin Hooper is off the board and I don't have anyone, I'm probably streaming tight end for the season. So Delaney Walker is not a guy I would kind of go out of my way to get. It's another case of you have to realize the offense you're investing in, and the Titans are going to only have 200 to 210 yards of passing yards to kind of go around, and I think they do have a lot of good pass catchers. So he's going to have to be splitting targets with Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, AJ Brown, and even Deion Lewis. So I just don't like that situation at all. Even if he does sort of regain his old form, and I think he's 38 or 40 years old now, might be kind of tough. But I just don't like that situation at all. I don't think there's any upside there. If he's on the waiver wire and you're streaming tight end and there's a great matchup, fine. But just I wouldn't want to spend any sort of draft capital locking in a guy like that doesn't have much upside, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with that offense, like you said, there's a lot of options, and Mariota or Tannehill, I guess. I think neither of them is good enough to really make more than one of them stand out. So I'm not really willing to bet on Delaney either. Although he is, I think, a little young. I think he's 35. So, but either way, I mean, it's bad for tight ends past a certain age. He's not exactly Antonio Gates or Tony Gonzalez. So I'm with you. I'm kind of fading Delaney Walker at his current ADP.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I don't usually go after tight ends early, and I'm finding myself not getting any of the top three because of it. But I do seem to be going after that next three. And so I just don't seem to be getting Delaney Walker on any of my squads because of that. And I wouldn't want him anyway. I would go elsewhere. There's even guys being drafted after him that I'd rather take a chance on than Delaney Walker. So I don't know. It's whatever. So let's switch some gears here and talk about some guys dropping down the drafts. And we'll start with Kyler Murray. Everybody's excited about this Arizona offense, and for good reason. There's a lot of weapons. New head coach, young guy, bringing in the spread. But Kyler Murray, right? He had an okay first preseason game, then had that awful second preseason game, and you saw his draft stock drop like a rock. And it hasn't really recovered, even though he had a pretty decent week 3. I mean, is this an overreaction, or did this finally correct itself?
Yeah, he's the toughest guy to peg, that's for sure. So I figured whatever he did in the preseason was going to send his stock way up or way down. And yeah, he really gave us nothing to work with. So it wasn't surprising to see his stock go down, but I think if anything, it's helped him fall to where I think that you should definitely target him if you don't have a quarterback yet. With him, we're shooting for the moon and getting that potential QB1 upside. So if he falls late enough and you take a chance on him, he's not going to kill you. If he ends up being a disaster, which I don't think is going to be the case, the waiver wire is going to be pretty stacked. So he's a pretty safe bet if you factor that in. But, having said that, this offense is going to throw a ton. The defense is going to be horrible. So just he doesn't even have to be good. He's going to have a lot more plays to work with this year. They're going to throw a ton, and he has that rushing upside. That's something that I think people like with him is he has that rushing ability. So his upside is basically what we see in Deshaun Watson. So I will not pass him up just because of some poor preseason performances. They could have been just running a more vanilla offense and not trying to show their hand a little bit. But having said that, he hasn't really made people that have been taking him in round 8 feel comfortable. But that's kind of what you're getting with him. It's sort of the high risk, high reward pick. So if anything, it's helped his ADP drop to a reasonable place where I think it's worth taking a chance on him.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think Kyler is you're really shooting for the upside in an offense that's geared towards making things easy for him and is going to be just perennially playing catch up. That defense is awful. The first 4 weeks they're going to be missing Patrick Peterson, so he's going to get a lot of opportunity. And like you said, with the rushing, floor to add to his potential passing upside, Kyler is someone that I could really see rewarding people who draft him. Joe, do you got anything on Kyler? I'm not sure. Are you a Kyler guy?
I'm not really sure, man. I exactly what Sean said. He is a tough guy to peg down. I think the upside is truly there, but man, he could bottom out real hard too. So I think you kind of have to rank him at the back end of that quarterback 1 range, maybe very, very top of the quarterback 2, just because there's that chance. And I think if you take him, I don't think I've been in a draft yet where somebody hasn't taken him and then taken a fairly high second quarterback because you just don't know. So I think I would go that route if I waited long enough as well, because I mean you could be getting a top 5 guy, on any given week because he's got the tools to succeed. It's just whether or not that team is going to be good enough around him to let him succeed is the other question. And he's a rookie, and I know we've seen rookies succeed, more recently than not, but it's still not something I like to buy into. And as Bob Lung, referred to last week, I mean, he can count on one hand the number of rookie quarterbacks who have been, above average consistent throughout the entire season. So I'm more leaning no on him than yes, but I don't hate the pick if it's in the right spot. Like, probably 11th, 12th quarterback drafted in a league.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think just proceed with caution with Kyler.
Yeah.
Get a backup. Moving on to the running backs. Tariq Cohen is someone who I honestly haven't heard much news about at all this offseason, but for whatever reason, his ADP has fallen about a round or so. Sean, do you think this is a result of maybe people buying into David Montgomery or losing faith in Trubisky, or is this just noise?
Yeah, I think it's probably mostly due to people buying into Montgomery. I think Montgomery's cracked the top 20 now in ADP in recent drafts. So I think just people are loading up on Montgomery, and rightfully so. I think he's the highest ceiling play of this backfield. But you also have Mike Davis there too. So this is sort of a 3-headed monster. And with Tariq Cohen, he had the advantage last year, with Jordan Howard back there. Anytime there's a passing situation, Tariq Cohen would be in there. But both backs, David Montgomery and Mike Davis, are great pass catching backs. So it's just really hurting his stock, and they're going to get more creative in how they use Cohen. But yeah, I think his touches are going to go down. So his drop sort of makes sense. But I think Montgomery is definitely being drafted closer to his ceiling. I think in order for one of these backs to really crush their ADP, I think someone's going to have to miss some time, just because I think they are going to kind of use them interchangeably. And, all 3 of them can have their own role in this offense. So I think, I think all 3 are sort of fades for me at this point, just based on their ADP.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. I think they're all going to kind of vulture fantasy value from each other, because I think they're all versatile backs. and they can all be kind of used in a hot hand type situation. Obviously, Montgomery's the most talented one, and Tariq's kind of more of a specialist, but it does make me nervous seeing these ADPs. I'll probably end up fading them as well.
Yeah, I'm not really looking to target the Chicago backfield either, but another backfield that I've been seemingly avoiding for probably pretty obvious reasons, although maybe I shouldn't be, is the Rams. And we all know Gurley, and early on Gurley's ADP was like late second round. That's gained, but not enough to talk about really. The guy who I'm kind of interested in here is Darrell Henderson. And he has dropped a bit. He was late 6th round at one point early this month, and now he's down to like, early-ish 8th round. I mean, are people just buying into Gurley again, or what do you think the reason is for Darrell Henderson's drop here?
Yeah, I think it is just, people are sort of, I mean, we all kind of overreacted to Gurley, early in the summer, and the hype train for Henderson was off the rails a bit. But, it looks like Gurley's going to be pretty healthy to start the season. But also, Darrell Henderson has not looked great running the ball. He's looked great catching the ball, and I think that's kind of the role they have him set up for in this offense. They basically said he's going to be more of the Chris Thompson type role. So I think he could have early season value even if Gurley's healthy. I think he could get a few catches a game, maybe 5 to 6 carries. But his upside is if Gurley misses time, he's going to see probably RB2 value. But I think I just want to make sure no one's ignoring him. But I think Malcolm Brown might actually be the handcuff to Todd Gurley. Because like I said, I don't know if Darrell Henderson's vision is good enough yet as a rookie to sort of handle, 15 plus carries. So I think if Gurley does go down, Malcolm Brown is the back to own. So I've been getting Malcolm Brown late, 14th round in a lot of my drafts is just kind of a potential upside stash. So I think Henderson can be the guy that has value while Gurley's in the lineup, but Malcolm Brown is Gurley's handcuff, if that makes sense.
And checking my leagues to see if Malcolm Brown's available right now. No. Yeah, no, I could buy that. I've watched the games with Henderson and he hasn't looked great. And they're being very cautious with Gurley. The big reason why I'm avoiding Gurley in most cases is just I think there's still kind of that worry that they're going to pull like he's in the NBA. It's like it's the Cardinals. We'll sit you this week. You're good. You'll get like 10 touches. But you'll never know when that's going to happen until it just happens mid-game. They're like, you can sit down. We need you for next week. So that's what really scares me about Gurley and why I'm avoiding him. But in the same sense, even if Henderson was the handcuff, you never know when that's going to really work out for him either. So it's like that's why I've just been avoiding this backfield.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Gurley is someone he's going to, there's a potential for him to just make or break people's seasons. Like he could, for all we know, like the knee thing could be really, really serious. And for all we know, he could be 100% healthy and full go the whole season. It's going to be interesting. He's probably the most divisive player in fantasy right now. But yeah, like you said, it's probably someone that I'm kind of worried about just because the uncertainty is really, really concerning. Moving on to another player in the NFC West, Dante Pettis is a receiver who I liked a lot going into the preseason. I thought he had a wide receiver 1 role locked up, but Kyle Shanahan is kind of playing games with him. He's been playing him deep into preseason games, saying he has to earn his job, yada, yada, yada. So he's dropped about 2 rounds to round 8 ADP. Sean, is Pettis still someone you think is draftable, or are you really worried about what's going on in San Francisco?
Yeah, I am worried. I'm not so worried about the coach speak. I think Shanahan is just trying to motivate him. I think Pettis should be the number one receiver by week 1. But I am worried just that the 49ers just have way too many passing options. The top guy is obviously going to be George Kittle, but rookies Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd could have a pretty big role this year, and Marquise Goodwin is still there. Their leading receiver, Kendrick Bourne, is still there. So it's a situation where we don't really know how it's going to shake out. It's going to be one of those teams where the target distribution is pretty spread out. So you don't like hearing anything like this. So just any kind of negative coach speak or anything like that, it's going to impact my rankings quite a bit just because they're so tight together. But long term, I still think Pettis is the guy to own out of these wide receivers. So if anything, hopefully his ADP drops a little bit more, and then I think go for it. I think just if you're going to get him cheaper because of this, it's gonna help you out in the end, because I think at the end of the season he should lead these receivers in yards and possibly touchdowns.
Yeah, I've got to hope it works out. I snagged him some of my early drafts at his earlier ADP, unfortunately, so I better hope it works, because that's going to be a pretty big burn for me if this coach speak isn't just coach speak. So, moving on here, a guy that you mentioned a little earlier is somebody going around the same range as Emmanuel Sanders, and that's Sammy Watkins. He's dropped a full round over the last couple of weeks, and my immediate thought was this was due to the Tyreek Hill returning, but this is after we knew Tyreek Hill was back, so I'm not really sure why we see the drop. Is any explanation of this that you can think of?
No, not really. I thought it would be just still kind of reacting to the Tyreek Hill news, but it's perplexing, because I think he is the guy that you'd want to invest in this range. Again, with a guy like him, you're investing into the Chiefs offense. So, he's going to be the number 2 receiver, but I think a lot of this could be due to Mecole Hardman looking really good in preseason. Maybe people think he's going to eat into Watkins' role this year. I don't see that as being the case. And I will say, Watkins is their opening day, wide receiver 2, but don't get too cocky with him, because he's probably their 4th option in the passing game. You have to remember they have Kelce and even Damian Williams out of the backfield. So after Tyreek Hill, I think Watkins is the 4th option in this offense. But having said that, this is an offense where you want to invest in players that are going to have a role early in the season. So I just think in this range, getting Watkins, you're getting that massive upside. If anything were to happen to Tyreek Hill or even Travis Kelce, his stock's going to go up. So I think he's a guy that you just let the ADP drop, and it's going to give him more value getting him later in your draft. So I think he's a good ROI kind of investment where he's going right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Sammy Watkins is a guy who I will definitely let fall to me, but I'm not going to reach for. If he falls to me in a spot where I kind of look around at the other guys, don't really like anyone, I'll definitely take him, just because that offense is really explosive, and I'd like to get a piece of it. Who knows what's going to happen with Tyreek? Who knows in his second year? Maybe Sammy Watkins can actually just contribute more. I'm not really sure why that's dropping. I'll take him if he ends up dropping too far, though. Someone else who's dropping pretty inexplicably is tight end Trey Burton of the Bears. His ADP's dropped almost 2 full rounds, and I'm not 100% sure why. I think maybe he's been dealing with some kind of injury, but Sean, do you have any insight on why Burton might be falling?
Yeah, actually, he's had sports hernia surgery, so that's why he missed the preseason, and he's tentatively expected to play week 1. So I think just you would expect him to sort of start off slowly, so he could split time with Adam Shaheen to start the year. And he was being drafted in that range right at the back end of tight end 1. So a lot of teams don't draft 2 tight ends. So sort of that tight end 13 or 14 ADP, you could fall off the cliff if people aren't drafting as their tight end 1. They're likely falling to the waiver wire. So that I think that would explain sort of that massive drop off. Is people are probably moving up Delaney Walker or Jimmy Graham or a Kyle Rudolph kind of guy, and just leaving Burton off the draft board, just because, like I said, the sports hernia surgery should cause him to get off to a little bit slow start. But then, during the season, he could be a guy that you pick up to sort of be your tight end one going forward if you're streaming the position. He certainly has that capability. We just don't know how long it's going to take for him to shake off this rust.
Yeah, that's fair. While we're on the Bears, do you think Trubisky is going to be good enough to kind of support Burton, Allen Robinson? People tend to like Anthony Miller. Is there another guy on the offense I'm forgetting? I think there is.
Well, I mean, Tariq Cohen and David Montgomery, they have a ton of options. Even Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And even Cordell Patterson, another guy they can use out of the backfield or out wide. So they just have a ton of options. And if anybody, I would just take Trubisky. But even then, he's just too inconsistent. They're going to have some weeks where he throws for 300 plus yards and some weeks where he throws for 150 or less. So I just like having consistent players. I think a lot of people, just when it comes to just head-to-head fantasy, go too much for upside. When I talk about upside, I'm talking about players that can outperform their ADP by a ton. But on a week-to-week basis, you just want your team to put up more points than your opponent. So I like players with a high floor. And Trubisky, Allen Robinson, Burton, guys like that, they're just going to have a high ceiling and low floor every week because you never know what you're going to get, because the defense is going to be solid again this year. So if they get out early, they just won't have to pass as much. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And, everybody sort of becomes an inconsistent player as a result.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. This is kind of my thoughts on the Bears as well. But Sean, man, I think that's all we've got for ADP talk, man. This was great information, and hopefully everybody listening that has their drafts this weekend can take this information and go dominate, man. I think this is great stuff for them. But before we go, I'll let you go. Why don't you remind everybody where they can find you around and what you guys got going on at the Action Network?
Yeah, so you can find all my work on actionnetwork.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at @the_oddsmaker. And I just put out my updated tiers piece today. So some player props I'm betting. And then I would say tomorrow I'm switching over to my weekly process. So look for my weekly tiers early next week, along with my projections. And then I do a lot of gambling content too. So look for all my work on actionnetwork.com. Good
stuff, man. Good stuff. I'm going to get you this year in the ECR.
All right. Bring it on. Good luck this year on that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Anyway, thanks for coming on. It's good stuff as always. And good luck yourself this season. See ya.
Yeah, thanks, you too. Thanks for having me.
All right, so that was Sean Kerner from the Action Network. I keep wanting to say the Action Line. That's not it. Definitely check out his work. He's definitely top notch when it comes to rankings and things like that. But so Kevin, I wanted to close out the show here and just talk briefly about our draft, our fantasy six-pack staff and friends draft here. It was Tuesday night, this past Tuesday night, and as always, very interesting show here, or draft. We a lot of guys sniping each other. We've all been in the league for quite a while. What I want to ask you, like, what picks did you find like the most interesting of all of them?
There was a lot of them.
Hopefully none of mine.
None of them were yours.
Okay.
I don't think.
There were a lot of them by one specific person.
Don't do me like that.
There's AJ. What's up, man?
What up?
Oh boy.
Yeah, AJ going Darren Waller.
Yes.
New England Patriots defense, New York Jets, Cole Beasley to round out his draft was.
All right. First of all, thank you, Kevin, for coming on in my steed. It's been a day. I'll leave it at that. Don't need to bore the listeners with all of that drama, but yeah, it was an interesting draft from my perspective. I took the turn pick at the 12 purposefully when I think I had the 5th selection or 6th selection,
whatever it was.
I was like, you know what, F it, I'm going 12.
Hey, I don't mind it. That's a good idea.
I'm gonna make this a thing and try to see who falls to me. And I was okay with the first couple rounds. And honestly, well, I say that, but honestly, like my first couple picks, I was like, yeah, I don't really like these picks. But the Darren Waller was definitely a bit of a reach. I'll put that out there. I can't remember who I took right after him, also a reach. But I was like, you know what? I need a backup tight end. I like this matchup when Kittle is out. I'm going to go with this. And then, this other pick, we'll see what happens. But yes, I also took back-to-back defenses because why stream defenses every week when you can manage the schedule and look at two teams that complement each other for the bad weeks and the good weeks? So that's what I went with. I was like, you know what? The first week I might actually pick up a third defense for week 1. I may have to drop Darren Waller. So we'll see if that becomes a thing. But I don't know. I don't know what I was doing, coming towards the end of it. I was just, you know what? I'm trying to get my daughter to sleep. I missed out on the Hangouts thing, and it was just it was a whole thing. So it's
Sounds
been a
like
bit
a
of a
whole
week.
lot of excuses
but,
to me, man.
Hey, you know what? Excuses are great because they're like assholes, and everybody has one. So I have about 7 just excuses. So I got to make fun of myself when I can, and let everybody else do it with me and or for me. So yeah.
Good stuff, man. So
let's hear your other interesting picks.
So yes,
weren't
I'm going
mine.
to call out Richard.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you knew this was coming, man.
It's bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
No, is it? Are we sure?
No.
So Richard goes out and takes Darwin Thompson in round 7. Now,
sniped, by the way.
Sniped? What? Dude, you're at the other end of the draft from him. How can you get sniped?
Sniped me from Darwin Thompson or Darwin
Thompson? No.
But
you
I
can't get
had him,
sniped
like,
when you're at the other end
later.
of the pick. No. No, that's
3
not
rounds
sniping.
later.
Anyway, Darwin Thompson in round 7 seemed a bit early. I mean, I get that his ADP has climbed, but and we had this discussion with Sean. I don't know if we're buying him quite that early. I felt like that was a little too aggressive. I mean, Kevin, you with me on that one?
Yeah, 7. I remember it was in our group chat.
Yes.
Audible. What?
Yeah, we were all like, whoa, because I mean, he skipped Tevin Coleman. He skipped, Drake, whatever, right? But I don't know, man. You have a lot of faith in Darwin Thompson taking Damian Williams early in the season to spend a round 7 pick on him. I mean, he has some other head scratchers. He took Mike Williams over Godwin, or no. He took Mike Williams over Kupp, and I mean, you can argue T.Y. Hilton, but maybe not so much anymore. There was definitely some other picks with him that I was man.
Dude, you still gotta go Ty. I'm sorry.
And,
Andrew Luck retirement be damned. You still gotta go Ty over Mike Williams. Mike Williams is.
Mike Williams will be solid this year. I don't hate that one, but over Kupp seemed a little interesting.
I don't doubt that. Over Kupp, yes.
And then he backed up his OJ Howard.
Woods.
Yeah, backed up his OJ Howard pick, which we all knew was coming, by the way, which is funny. because he loves him some OJ Howard, and rightfully so. I don't care about that pick. But why take Greg Olsen at all? I mean, Greg Olsen. Let's be real. Greg Olsen ain't doing nothing.
Yo, you're missing the most shocking.
You know what Greg Olsen's going to do? He's going to go out on the field and be like, my foot. Blah.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he's going to fall over, and then he's going to miss the entire season and piss off fantasy owner everywhere who are like,
who's going to piss off besides Richard?
You
Who drafted him
cost me
besides
my
Richard?
I don't like 3 people probably. I don't know. I don't own any shares of them yet. I have one more draft. We'll see.
You'll find a way, Darren Waller.
I'm going to. I'm going to be like, you know what? Greg Olsen, you're my round 7 Darren Waller this draft.
All right. So
all right. Well, wait. Before we get too far into this Richard bashing, let's at least put out there
I'm
that
done with the Richard bashing. I was done.
Okay, fine. See, I knew it.
I've got.
You're not okay. Go for it.
Well, let me at least say it was the man's birthday. He was out boozing and celebrating, as he should be. So, poor placement for his birthday to fall on the draft day. But, whose fault is that? I don't know. His parents.
Hey, he voted for the day.
Yeah, whatever. If he voted for it, then whatever. That's his own fault. But, no. He actually took
Russell Wilson. That was the other interesting one. He took Wilson over Mayfield and Wentz. And
also, quarterback.
Oh, God. Mayfield fell like a toddler that has snorted, whatever up its nose.
AJ's in rare form tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, it's been a day. Yes. I don't know if I've described it, but it's been a day. Okay.
Clearly.
All right. Yeah, a drunken toddler. We'll just call it that. But I did not understand the quarterbacks, especially because all of you fuckheads decided to be like, hey, guess what? AJ's not picking for 4 more rounds. Let's all go out and get ourselves some quarterbacks because he doesn't have one yet. So thanks for that.
Yeah,
that's
round 9,
my interesting
everybody
pick.
took a quarterback before you. It was like, what in the hell happened?
Fucking dicks. There's like 4 off the board. I was like, I'm good.
And I'm
boom,
gonna have to
boom.
flag this one as adults only on YouTube because of you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyway,
I mentioned it's been a day?
Yes. All right, so let's get to it real quick. Oh, or Kevin, you said you had some extra things to say.
He's got some more Richard bashing.
Russell Wilson, QB5.
Was that? Yeah.
Ridiculous.
QB5. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. Never mind.
He didn't. He took a quarterback, and then somebody took Baker, and I was like, I just got to go Wentz. I was actually trying to make you mad, AJ, with Wentz, but apparently it didn't really work until the other 2 quarterbacks went off. But anyway.
So.
You're breaking up, buddy.
He's probably just cursing you out, so it's probably.
He probably is. It's all right. We'll just skip that one. All right. So Kevin, I know you got to bounce here. Nah, AJ, you're in a dead zone, man. I think I know you're driving back from wherever you were today, but you're losing signal pretty bad.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So.
All right.
I know Kevin's got to bounce, so I want to get his quick results and predictions for this league.
All right, so I'll come in first place, and
okay.
Yeah,
this is going to be an awesome conversation.
I'm coming in first. Everyone else is tied for last, as far as I'm concerned, and it's going to be a good season.
All right.
Actually, I really like some people's teams. There's some that I hate. I'm not going to call them all out. But I like Jonathan's team. I like this guy who I don't know his name.
Which team?
Something Weiss? Jason Weiss?
Jason. Yeah.
Jason Weiss. I like his team.
Yeah, he always does well.
Yeah. And I love AJ.
So it sounds like you don't like my team. It's okay.
I feel like I'm sucking up.
Did you just say you love my team? Am I even still coming on?
I love AJ's. Fantastic. He has Josh Gordon. What could go wrong?
Well,
I mean,
I did that specifically for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you pissed off like half the draft room,
Everybody.
except for me, because y'all can have him.
Everybody.
No way.
I every other pick was like Noah being like, God damn it, what? Blah, 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 blah. Son of a bitch. And it's like, dude, what? You could have picked this person before my turn. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I don't know if you lost me or not.
No, we got you.
Oh, okay.
So, all right, Kevin, I think you got a bounce, right?
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for helping out, man. Talk to you later.
Take
Much
care.
appreciated, buddy.
All right, so AJ, just a couple more minutes, man, since you just jumped on. I'm guessing you can't really look at the draft since you're driving, but that's all right.
Cannot. I mean, I can if you want this podcast to end horribly wrong.
No, that's
but,
okay.
I mean,
so
I remember a lot of it, and like I said, the biggest kick to my sack was the run on QBs.
yeah, dude,
I was
right before.
I was very upset with you taking Wentz because I really wanted Wentz in this draft, thinking, and I almost took him the turn before you got him coming back. I think you got him coming back up, correct?
Yes. So you took Deshaun with the first pick in the 8th.
Yes.
And then it came all the way back around, and that run on quarterbacks. There were 6 quarterbacks taken before you, and there were already 3 taken before that. So, yes, you got royally screwed. I think, honestly, the most shocking pick,
horrendous.
and we talked to Sean about this guy, Kyler Murray, went with quarterback 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Gone, dude. He was the last quarterback taken. He was the last QB1 taken by Noah.
Yeah, he was. Quarterback 12. But it was so far. It was round 12. I mean, it was just like free at that point.
Oh, God, it was way down.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous.
Because Noah's like, oh, I'm just going to wait longer.
You know, I would have thought.
And I don't blame him.
Yeah, I would have thought somebody else would have taken another quarterback again before that, knowing that Kyler Murray was there. But, like, it kind of shocked me that, like, Goff went earlier, Lamar went earlier, right? Like, all these – I was honestly shocked that you didn't take Murray and you took Big Ben. I don't know if you heard me. Okay.
Yeah. No. I'm just contemplating. Yeah, and honestly, I didn't look at Noah's team and see 17 Steelers in 4 rounds to realize, well, this guy clearly wants Big Ben too. But I took Big Ben because of our conversation a week ago and also 2 weeks ago with Bob Lung. I mean, Big Ben was a top 3 quarterback last year. Yes, he had AB. That helped him in that spot, but he's still going to have a good year, and I still like him as a QB1 above a rookie, above Kirk Cousins, who you took with your second quarterback, who I almost did a back-to-back quarterback pick and take Roethlisberger and Cousins because I was like, you know what? I'm already screwed here thanks to this run. Let me just.
I know we're losing you again. I think we got to end this anyway, but yeah, it was an interesting draft. Obviously, I don't think there's any
when Ben's on the bye.
Yeah. So yeah, you're cutting in and out. So
am I?
I think
okay.
I think we're gonna I'm gonna cut this off anyway. But yeah, it was an interesting draft. It was obviously we saw the weight on quarterbacks. That's something you definitely see in these more industry heavy leagues. But round 9 it just kind of like took off, as you said. Tight ends went way earlier, and that's been happening this year.
Yeah.
You see the top 6, 7, 8, 9 go, and then it's just like, who cares after that? I think it was it Kevin or Jonathan? That like
somebody took
Jonathan took T.J.
Henry?
Hawkinson with his only tight end, and I think has already dropped him for somebody else, maybe Trey Burton, which is hilarious. So
Nice.
so he took him. I was like, really?
Poor
Okay.
Trey Burton's like, what the hell, guys? Like, come on. I
Yeah.
know I sucked last year, but damn.
Yeah, So the guys, obviously, that I just want to point out real quick to end this is the guys that obviously are getting all the big preseason news. So Zeke, I took with pick 5, and it was not because the other top four running backs went. Keith took DeAndre Hopkins with pick 4, so I was left having to flip a coin between David Johnson and Zeke, and I'm just praying that Zeke doesn't completely screw me. Like Lev Bell did to him last year. So he was just like, I couldn't do it. And I don't blame him. After getting burned like that on Lev Bell last year, I couldn't do it either.
Yeah.
And then coming back around, I want to say, who got Melvin Gordon?
Mixon. Oh.
I can't find him on here.
I can't remember. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
was
no,
he
it's all
third
good.
round?
No, he went later than that. He
went
went 6th round to a previous writer for the site, Scott. 6th round. I mean, at that point, yeah, you might as well, right? And
Damn.
I mean, how many 6th rounders are going to get dropped? Probably a ton. So,
Yeah.
you know, there'll be injuries. There'll just be underperformers. It'll happen. So, yeah, Melvin Gordon. Although, interestingly enough, Austin Eckler went 2 picks after him. So, yeah, there's that.
Yep.
Yeah, the quarterback run. And, we don't do kickers, thankfully. We still have defenses. I want to get rid of that. Ballage and Drake, those were the other 2 guys that we mentioned. So Drake went in the 7th round, and Ballage went in the 8th round. So, again, they're, like, right back to back. So, I mean, like, and we talked about this with Sean, too. Like, there's going to either have to be, like, an injury or a trade or something for one of these guys to really meet this ADP. And that offense probably isn't going to be good enough to really matter. Marlon Mack went in the 5th round.
Yeah.
So
Solid-
and
solid
as we
pick for
mentioned, T.Y.
Keith.
Hilton fell to the 4th, which is understandable without Andrew Luck. I mean, these guys are going to suffer. And another guy that we brought up with Sean here was Eric Ebron. He sank for tight ends, and
yeah.
he should have.
He was sitting there, I think, when I picked Waller. And everyone's like, dude, is it the last pick? I think that was your text. And I was like, no. And then it's like 3 picks later, Ebron goes. I'm like, shit, Ebron is still sitting there?
Yeah,
like,
well,
damn
he
it.
went tight end 13, and you took Waller with the 12th tight end, and that was your 2nd tight end, which was very interesting, to say the least. So, yeah. I mean, I like my team, but I am very injury prone, in my opinion. And suspension prone, I guess. Zeke, Cook, I've got Coleman, who's kind of banged up every now and then. Shepard's kind of been banged up. Crowder's been banged up. Thompson's been banged up. I've got a very injury prone team, so I don't know if I love my team, but apparently Fantasy Pros did. It ranked me 2nd, ranked Keith 1st as far as best drafts. So I'll take it, I guess. Hopefully it works out that way for me. But
Nice.
all right, man. Well, I'm gonna call this one.
How far down did it put me?
Where?
What's that?
I don't remember now. Let's see here. You were 10th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what you get for taking 2 quarterback or two tight ends and 2 defenses. So
Defenses.
yeah,
I'm telling you. Look at their
it
schedules.
doesn't matter.
and
You are
tell
not
me
hanging on to
that
both of
doesn't
those.
somehow
You are
make
not
sense.
hanging on to both of those. So good luck thinking that, but you're not hanging on.
Probably
to both.
not. Probably not.
So-
No, I know I'm not, but I only need one of them for the playoffs. So
All right.
just like the baseball league, I will make the playoffs and I will make noise. So you're welcome.
You might make some noise, but it may not be playoff noise. But okay.
It'll be playoff noise.
You're good at making
Trust me.
noise. So, all right, man.
I will make playoff noise in this league.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Write
Anyway,
it down.
thanks for calling in, man. Glad you could chime in for this show, despite all the craziness that happened to you today, and best wishes to you and the fam for everything that's going on. So that's it for the show. Thanks to everybody.
Man.
Thanks again to Sean.
Appreciated.
Yeah, thanks to Sean for coming on, and Kevin for filling in for you tonight. Week 1 is next week. We will be doing our shows on Thursday, so we won't be previewing for the Thursday games, I should say. But we will be having a lot of insight for the weekend, and we might have some surprises for you this year. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. There might be some new goodies for you guys this year, so stay tuned. All right, that's all we got for the show this week, and good luck to everybody drafting this weekend. See ya.